The collapse of Russian influence, a new world order emerging. For decades, Russia positioned itself as one of the pillars of global power, a nation capable of shaping geopolitics through energy, military strength, and diplomacy. But after the invasion of Ukraine, the tide began to turn. The once feared Moscow now faces isolation, economic strain, and a collapse of credibility on the world stage. As we approach the mid-2020s, a new question arises: is Russia still a global superpower? Or has it fallen into irreversible decline? This is the story of how the collapse of Russian influence is reshaping the world order, from Europe's renewed unity to Asia's shifting alliances, and the rise of a multipolar world where power is no longer defined by might alone. Europe's awakening. The war in Ukraine has awakened Europe from decades of complacency. The European Union, once fragmented by economic interests and internal politics, found new purpose in unity. NATO, once called brain-dead by leaders, has become stronger than ever. Nations like Finland and Sweden abandoned neutrality, a decision unthinkable before 2022. The collapse of Russian influence has also reignited Europe's own defense identity. The continent now invests billions into new technologies, joint armies, and independent deterrence. What was once Europe's greatest fear, dependence on Russian gas, has now become a lesson in resilience. Europe no longer bends to Moscow's pressure. It stands united, determined, and independent. Economic breakdown. Russia's economy, once stabilized by oil and gas, has been shattered by sanctions and isolation. Western corporations withdrew en masse, taking with them not only capital but also innovation and access to global markets. The ruble remains volatile. Inflation surges. Technology imports have collapsed. Moscow tries to replace the West with China and India. But these are partnerships of necessity, not equality. Even its energy empire, the last pillar of Russian power, is eroding as Europe diversifies and the world shifts toward renewables. The Kremlin's attempt to weaponize energy became the catalyst for its own decline. Military illusions. The war revealed the limits of Russian military might. Once feared for its vast arsenal and brutal efficiency, the Russian army has been exposed, plagued by corruption, poor logistics, and outdated strategies. The losses in Ukraine are staggering: tens of thousands dead, hundreds of tanks destroyed, and entire divisions demoralized. The myth of the unstoppable Russian army has been broken, replaced by images of chaos and retreat. For the world, this was a turning point. Power without precision, intimidation without innovation, can no longer win modern wars. The fall of soft power. Russia once used culture, energy, and disinformation to expand influence without firing a shot. From RT news to online propaganda, Moscow shaped global narratives. But the Ukraine war exposed it all, and the world turned away. Russian films vanished from festivals, athletes banned from competition, and its music, art, and media became symbols of aggression. The Kremlin's soft power has collapsed, leaving behind an empire of silence and censorship. Asia's strategic shift. In Asia, Moscow's collapse has forced new calculations. China grows cautious, using Russia as a weakened junior partner, not an equal ally. India distances itself diplomatically, balancing between East and West. Central Asia, long under Russian influence, now turns toward Turkey and the West. For the first time in a century, Moscow's control over its eastern sphere is fading, and Asia is moving on. The rise of Europe. With Russia's decline, Europe steps into a new era of responsibility. It is building not just defense but identity, an identity based on democracy, technology, and collective strength. The European project, once fragile, now has purpose: to safeguard freedom in a changing world. The shadow of Moscow no longer defines Europe, the future does. The multipolar world. The collapse of Russian influence is not the end of one nation. It is the rebirth of global balance. Power now flows through multiple centers: Washington, Brussels, Beijing, New Delhi. The 21st century belongs not to empires, but to networks, alliances, and shared values. A new world order is emerging, one built not on fear, but on cooperation. Conclusion. After the empire. History will remember this decade as the one that ended Russia's imperial dream. The war in Ukraine was not only a tragedy, it was a turning point. The world is no longer divided by walls of ideology, but connected by lines of consequence. The collapse of Russian influence is not the fall of one nation. It is the awakening of many. The new world order is not coming. It is already here. Video description. A 120-minute in-depth documentary exploring the collapse of Russian influence after the Ukraine war and how it reshapes the modern global order from Europe's unity to Asia's realignment and the rise of a multipolar world.